May I request Professor Jyotiraj Pathak, Head Department of Political Science, Bodoland University, to deliver keynote speech. Sir, please start.
Good morning, friends and respected participants. It gives me immense pleasure to deliver the keynote speech on this webinar organized by the Department of Political Science, s.kula Women's College, Manipur, and on the theme of COVID pandemic, the socio-economic impact and sustainable living. And respected participants, I do hope that you are doing well even during this global crisis, health crisis. So for the last 4 months, we have been witnessing an unprecedented situation almost throughout the world, and India is no exception to it. And because of this very lockdown at the national level also, we are facing lots of problems, and in fact we are living in a isolated life, and the whole pandemic, it affects us severely, be it social issues, political issues, economic issues, or psychological issues also. And in fact it's a humanitarian crisis, and we are not sure about how long it will continue. In fact we have a very bleak future. So from this economic front, although I am a student of political science only, but as per my idea, the general idea, and perhaps all of you are sharing almost more or less the same feelings, thinking that since this very lockdown, in fact we had little option, the government of India had little option but to go for total lockdown. So almost all the business activities, economic activities, it came to a halt, and in some special sectors it has a very huge and negative impact, especially the sectors like aviation, tourism, hotel, manufacturing, real estate, and sports activities. These were severely affected. Until now, these sectors are not fully recovered from this impact of lockdown. And the thing is that at the same time, because of closing down of some of those major sectors, millions of people, basically the working class people, they are affected. In India, as you know, 90% of our workforce, they work in informal sectors. And informal sectors, again, these working class people, casual labor, part-time labor, say some PT businessmen, they are severely affected. They are returning back to their respective states in the form of reverse migration. And as we know, maybe because of lack of some coordination on the part of the state governments or between state and central governments, those working class people who are migrating to their respective home states, they have faced lots of problems. And as we know, there is very little working avenues in our states, in the respective states. So definitely majority of those people will become jobless in coming days. Then since these people are coming back, the major economic activities are halted. So definitely it is going to have a very negative impact over our GDP also, in the form of economic slowdown. So these are one area, major area for me of this corona crisis, at least in India. And other issues like social issues. So with this lockdown again, we had we had that very policy of quarantine, containment zone, social distancing. So these are parallelly, this goes on, and all this again leads to lots of trauma and psychological impact also, because people are harassed in the way that you cannot go out. You have to remain inside your home. A large number of people, they have to remain inside a very particular locality in the form of containment zone, etc., etc. So all this leads to lots of other related issues, especially in the form of, say, domestic violence, which affects the women, that class, severely. Some related issues like unwanted pregnancy, child pornography, and these were lots of incidents reported about these very issues. And working from home has become the new normal, but the thing is that very few percentage section of our people can work from home, those salaried class people. Then again, we had a very negative impact in the form of, say, online education also, which is leading towards the very issue of digital divide, because majority of the students, they just cannot afford digital education, especially in lower classes, in high school section. Maybe in upper section, in higher education section, we may go for say online system of education, teaching and learning, but that cannot be applied, at least for the primary section or, say, government run schools. So these are some other issues of very serious nature. Then again, in our cultural field also, you cannot perform in public platform because the large number of people just cannot attend those programs, and in religious places also we just cannot venture out. So all this has very negative impact in say economic, social and religious fields also. Then again, in politics, in the political field also, there is very little room that you can now criticize the government about its policies, because again you cannot gather. So then again, this interaction between the political leaders and general people, these are halted. But these are serious issues of say decision-making process, especially in the form of public policy and so on. So these are some of the issues, and definitely the major issue is always the health issues. And unfortunately, for say last several years, only 1% of our GDP is invested in health sector, which is quite low. And in accordance to WHO also, it should be raised to 6%. So since we are investing very less in health sector, that's why there is always a scarcity of, say, ICU units, scarcity of ventilator units, scarcity of sanitizer, hand gloves, masks, and all these things. And as of now, we are facing these problems, that is this shortage of required number of equipments and infrastructure. So these are but very serious issues, and especially in health sectors. And but in positive note also, especially in the case of women, at the global level, if you can see some head of the states, especially the women in the states like Denmark, Germany, Finland, New Zealand, say even Taiwan, they successfully contained the very spread of this virus, coronavirus. So that is a positive note on the part of the women, and that must be encouraged. So since we know that these are some of the very related issues of the COVID crisis, and the thing is that government must address already government of India started with the very package of the economic package of almost 26 billion dollar. It is almost 10% of our total GDP. It's a very welcome step on the part of the government, and even the very concept of Atmanirbhar Bharat, which definitely will lead us to a very self-reliant India maybe within this next one decade. So that is one issue, and government is just doing the right thing in these very issues. But other issues like universal access to healthcare system, universal basic income, this should be encouraged. And say at the end we can I think it's the time that we should relate the whole issue of the corona crisis, health crisis, with this very sustainable development goal, which almost all the states are saying that they are going to address it within, achieve the goals within the next say 2 decades, that means by 2030. And especially this goal number 3, which is related to say universal access to, or say universal health care facilities to all, well-being of all. So that is what very genuine issues. Because of this corona crisis, we have to have that sustainable living, and for sustainable living we have to have that very sustainable planet. And since there are 17 goals and almost all the goals are interlinked, goal number 1, 2, 3, 4 especially, like end of poverty, end of hunger, education for all. So these are but very related, so we just cannot isolate one particular goal. These are always interlinked, and it's high time that respective state governments, respective national governments must address these issues, because maybe because of this corona crisis there is a hole to the whole problem of issues of sustainable development goals, but definitely we have to address it. And fortunately we as a national policy, we already raised the very slogan of Sabka Saath Sabka Vishwas. So definitely that is a very positive say initiative on the part of the central government. And here we have to work since the corona crisis is not an isolated incident. Almost all the state governments, national governments, they have to work unitedly, and it is high time that these national governments must work together so that we can overcome the crisis. And to overcome the crisis, we have to address the very issues of sustainable development goals. So with this, I conclude my speech, and I wish the whole program, the webinar, a great success. Thank you.